But thank you very much for joining us again, and I'll let Marissa introduce herself and go from here.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. So my name is Marissa Hooper, and I have been at Demonstrate Success for about a year and a half now, and I've been able to work with ESP, work with school districts, and be able to have that collaboration amongst the technical side as well as figuring out what districts need, what educators need, and administrators. So I've been really excited to be working with some school districts in New Hampshire and get ESP up and rolling. As I go through this presentation and this live demonstration, please, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or Q&A, and Mike can either answer them or feed them to me, whatever it might be, because one of the great things about ESP is that it is flexible. So although we're going to be showing you a demonstration today, that if you have questions about different ways it might be able to be used or the way it's set up for your particular school or district, please definitely ask. So today we're going to go over a little bit of the Education Success Platform, just adding a little bit as to what Mike said. We're going to do a live demonstration of the teacher evaluation tracking within the platform itself, and then how, of course, you can learn more. What I'm going to do now is we're going to shut off our cameras just so that you are able to see the full screen and you're able to see the platform as well. As Mike stated, the Education Success Platform was a direct result of what we were finding that schools either do not have a system in place for, or maybe they do, and it was not able to best support their needs and initiatives for their district. ESP, ESP, we wanted to provide a streamlined process that was able to consolidate all of the information for those types of systems or initiatives that you have with that goal of making your school operations easier. So a little bit about the Education Success Platform. It is a cloud-based system, and it is designed to facilitate accurate and comprehensive data collection for educational purposes. And we're able to facilitate that data collection through the integration of forms and surveys. One great thing that we're going to be able to show you today is that those surveys can be created by you or customized and modified based on what we provide in our platform. We are able to consolidate the data that we're gathering in one location. As Mike stated, that was part of why the Education Success Platform was designed. So we do have that one place to gather all of that data. And a few examples of how this is being used is we might want to implement an MTSS framework, tracking student behavior. We have this educator evaluation process. We're working on how we're going to collect educator professional development and implementing climate and culture surveys. So today we're going to highlight how ESP can be used for that educator evaluation system that you have in place. As we stated, you know, I think a lot of times right now, right, this manageable solution is something we need in our districts to sort of make, life a little easier. So ESP is able to support both administrators and educators in that building. And what we're finding is we really want to make sure that we have an evaluation process in place that is very much growth oriented. What ESP is able to do is we can customize the way we're collecting data and giving feedback to our educators. And we're combining that data in order to figure out what we need for professional development for our educators and our staff that is ultimately going to meet the needs of our students. A little bit about ESP, and it's through these highlights we're going to be able to see live, is that we are able to integrate our educator rosters so that when we are doing these evaluations, we want to make them as seamless as possible. And we're able to do that through providing that data to both identify and target areas that require that professional development, which is part of the reason we're doing these educator evaluations. And one great thing about ESP that you're going to be able to see today, and as Mike said, with a district like Manchester, is that ESP can work well with small districts, but it can also work very well with large districts, which is beneficial to all. And you'll be able to see sort of what it looks like from what it would mean if you had a lot of schools in your district versus maybe just one or two. And what ESP can enable you to do as a user is that you're able to, again, use the forms we have in there and you can customize and edit them as well as create your own. Some feedback that we've heard with other platforms is that in order to make any changes, you have to contact support, which can take quite a while for you to contact them to make the changes. What's great about ESP is that you can do it yourself. Now we're here to support you. You can contact us, but you don't have to, right? You have the ability to do all of that in the platform yourself. ESP also enables you to monitor the evaluation process, and this will help you because it's able to help you determine if evaluations are completed both accurately and on schedule, right? You have enough to worry about, so this can sort of take that piece off of you. And we're able to share parts of a form and schedule notifications to users. We're going to be able to show you that today, as well as assigning specific parts of a form or an evaluation to specific users, right? So we want both the educators and the administrators to have access to these evaluations, but we want to make sure that we're restricting access to parts of the form so only specific people or roles can fill or edit those pieces. Okay, so right now we're going to go live on our education success platform and show you a little bit more about what we talked about. So right here, when you log in, it is going to prompt you to put in a username and password with your email, and it brings you to this landing page. How this landing page is set up right now is if I were, for example, an administrator from a larger district, we'll use Manchester as an example since those are the schools that I have here. If I am in a bigger role at the SAU and I want to be overseeing all districts, or excuse me, all schools within my district, then I'd be able to have access to all of that. If I was a principal logging in, then I would only have access to the forms and users that are in my school. So right here, we can see new forms. And what this is I can have access to all of the forms that I might be using ESP for. We're going to use educator evaluations as an example. And I could start a form right from the page here. When we actually go into a form, I am going to show you how we can do that, but this is how we can begin a new form. We can also see some in-progress forms. If we want to see the teachers that are currently being evaluated or observed right now, they're listed here. So we can see Ella Fitzgerald, not a real educator, by the way. These are made up users, is that we can go into their form and see where they're at with the administrator who's conducting that evaluation. And then we can also see completed and past due forms. We can go through the observations here that have been completed. So this is our landing page. What I'm going to show you now is that, and as Mike stated, I'm going to go into educator evaluations. These ESP forms are the categories that we're using. Right now, these can be customized to be whatever you're using ESP for in all the different ways that you can. So I'm going to go into our teacher evaluation forms. And how a district like Manchester, and maybe if you're using this as well, how this is set up is that there are evaluation forms for the roles in their district, as well as a formal observation form, a mini observation form, a quick formative, and they have a lot of forms to put in here. How other districts are using it is that they have one form, regardless of the role And regardless of what type of observation is being done, there's just one form. So you can use and set up this process to be whatever works for the type of evaluation system that you have in place. What I want to show you now is how we can easily go into a form and either edit or customize it. And again, as you saw that I had used this filter. For instance, if I want to find all the forms used on or made for special educators, I can use that filter. So I can type that in. Right here is where we can go into editing a form. So if I want to edit a form that's already in here, whether you're starting from scratch or you're using something you have previously done. You can see here that I'm not going to go through all the fields over here. However, when you highlight over this question mark, we do have a YouTube tutorial that shows you exactly what that field item does. And it also lets you know right here that it's a control for headings and other informative text. These are all the controls that we've used for this particular form, or the options that we have for this particular form. And we can choose the ones we want based on how we want to collect that data. So a little bit about this form. We have, the teacher's name. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we go into filling out an observation, but this is where you can put in that roster of your teachers for whichever administrator has either an assigned group of teachers, or maybe they have all of the teachers. We can input that data into the form itself. And if this is a form that you wanted to, change a little bit, you can easily, maybe I don't care to know who the evaluator is. And so I can get rid of that control. And maybe I want to add in that I want the evaluator to tell me what the lesson objective is for the day when they're in the classroom. So I can take this text area control and easily just drag it here. And I can edit this to add in my question. Now, what was the educator's learning objective during the class? And I can easily add in that control. You will also see page breaks in here. What was wanted was, because these, or for instance, a formal evaluation is so long, those page breaks, they wanted to be able to see, they wanted to be able to have different pages for different domains so that it wasn't so overwhelming. Whereas another district doesn't have any page breaks. They want to see the entire evaluation on one page, and they are using a radio button matrix. So they've put their domains and all their indicators in here, and they might have, the rating scale of applying, or developing, whatever it might be, and then the indicators here where they can easily just check off what they're observing in the classroom.
Marissa, can you also show, can you also just show the hover text in that matrix too?
Oh,
How
yeah.
to edit hover text.
Mhm. So if you had, so for instance, we might, have an indicator for our label 1, and also, that developing maybe in header 1. If we wanted to be able to show some hover text and maybe give a little more detail, we can edit that through this magnifying glass here. And we can say, based on this domain that we have, educator displays learning objective.
XYZ, whatever.
Yeah. And we can save that. So then when we hover over, we're able to see that within the matrix itself.
So it's a good way to give you, I'm sorry, to give some guidance to folks as they're doing their evaluation. So hopefully it's kind of helping calibrate and make sure that folks are evaluating in a similar fashion.
Yeah, and what I was going to add to that too is that if you attend our overview, we go into a little bit more detail of the controls, because within them, there's so much we can add, like Mike had just stated, that hover text. And so we can do more with the controls here. And then we have the rest of this form, and I'm going to highlight a few more things when we go to filling out the form, because how they want to set up this domain was that, every indicator needed to be observed with one of these ratings, which not observed is an option, but we had to be choosing one. And then we have to give evidence as to why. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how they restricted that in order to make it an easier process for them. So this is a little bit about how you can customize a form or create one. And then as you can see, there are a ton of forms in here. We also have the ability to clone forms, which made it a much simpler process to put all of these forms in that maybe changed just a little bit. It gave us a starting point. And we can also clone controls within a form itself. So if we wanted to be able to have this same control, we can copy that here. Next, I'm going to show you what the process might be like to complete a form. And we can access that from this page by this fill out form icon here. However, when you're using this, you're probably going to be starting a new observation form from your landing page. So if I wanted to start a mini one observation for a special education teacher, right, I'm going into the classroom and I'm starting it just from here. You can see that I have two that are already in progress that I can resume. And then I have one that I can start here if I want to start a new one. And that will always be there. You can always start a new one. If I'm going in and I'm selecting a teacher's names, as we stated, we can input the list of educators that you have into ESP. And how they wanted to set this up were that all of the educators on this list needed a mini one observation. Once the mini one observation was conducted, their name gets erased from the list. So what this means is that I have 3 more mini one observations to do for our special education teachers, for Ella, Tommy, and Papier. Those are the 3 teachers I have left. So I can choose their name and I can start to fill out their evaluation. This is where we had those page breaks. And what I want to show you here is that how they wanted to provide feedback to educators is that if they observed an effective rating or it was not observed, that no evidence had to be given. But if highly effective, basic, or ineffective was observed, then we want to give evidence. So if I clicked not observed, that evidence or question about giving evidence goes away. And if I chose highly effective as a rating, it remains, so I can give that evidence. And effective, it goes away, and basic and ineffective, it's there to give that evidence. We can also make it so we can start off where, that question is not there. And then based on the rating, it pops up and hides and shows depending on what we chose. And again, we have some hover text in here. That's that question mark. And then this means that that question is required. So you always have to give a rating, maybe not observed was there. This is where if you wanted to add in, any sort of files you might have, you can choose that from your computer and add in some files. They want to be able to upload any other notes or assessments or anything they might have from an evaluation. What we also wanted to highlight here is that at the end of this observation, we want our educators to be able to read their feedback. Of course, we're going to meet as an educator and an observer, but we also want our educator to be able to review their feedback. However, we do not want them to be able to have access to anything that the observer or administrator had filled out. So we can restrict these controls so that only certain roles or staff members have access. So that when a teacher puts in their comments and a teacher needs to sign off that they've seen their their feedback, they only have access to these two controls here. And if we go on a previous page, we can make it so that they do not have access to any of these controls. So whatever the observer or administrator had filled out, they're the only ones who have access to that.
And let me just add, Marissa, I think you said it, but just to be clear, when she says we can do this, you can do this. So when you build the form, you have the ability to say, if I choose not observed, I don't want the box to show. If I choose, ineffective, I do want the text box to show to add more data. Like that type of ability to turn things on and off, to restrict things to certain users, all of that is stuff that, and you at the school can do as you're building a form. And again, as Marissa said, we will definitely be there to help you do this all. But we just want you to realize it's not something you have to, pay more money for. It's not something you have to go to the vendor to ask them to do. You can make those changes yourself in the system.
Yes, thank you, Mike. I say we. I say we a lot, and it's because I'm putting myself sort of in the role as an administrator filling out this form. So whenever I say we, I just mean you as an administrator, right? We're able to do this, not Mike and I, but you as an administrator. And again, yes. So thank you, Mike, for pointing that out. I appreciate it.
No, and it does, I do want to take that comment that Marissa just meant and stress it. Like part of our ethos at Demonstrate Success is to really be committed and doing this as a partner. And so, if this is something that you decide to use for your school districts, we will approach it as a we. And, if you need help, we will work with you. So I appreciate you using that terminology. I just want to clarify. Thanks, Marissa.
Thank you, Mike. And the last sort of piece I wanted to highlight here is that if we wanted to share part of this form with Tommy, maybe this first page, we're going to be coming in on this date. We can put in the date ourselves, but maybe I want to let him know I'm coming in on February 11th at 1:00 p.m. to observe your classroom. So I can share this to Tommy. And I can put in his email. I can either add it by search. I can put in his email, who it's from, and let him know, please take a look at the form and you will be able to determine, or you will be notified of when I will be coming into your classroom. That's just one example. There are different reasons why we would share a form back and forth. For example, choosing a date and time to meet. And we are also working on ways on our end to make it, again, a more streamlined process to make it more manageable for you. So we do have some updates coming. So that's a little bit about filling out a form.
And that share too, might be where Tommy then puts in the goal or a description of the course for that day and shares it back to the principal to say, look forward to you coming. This is what I'll be teaching. I hope you're going to look for this or that, and be able to indicate that information. Can you also, I'm sorry, on that page, there was a question actually earlier, and I apologize, I didn't get to it. But in terms of if you want to search for one specific educator, like say you're working for looking at Ray Charles, you can easily in that filter just type in Ray or Charles or whatever, and it'll automatically show you just those. So it is a very nice kind of very quick response way to zero in on a certain teacher that you might want to be working with. So here would be a great way where if you had already completed some prior evaluations for Ray Charles, you could look at the history, you could open up the prior ones, you could look at the ones that are currently in process or start a new one.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you for that question. Definitely please ask any questions because ESP can do a lot more than what we can show you in this 30 minutes, which I know we're coming up on. So I'm just going to show you two more things about ESP. If we go into our educator evaluations, I just want to show you a little bit about sharing a form. So I'm going to go back into that special educator form where right here, I've created a share, but what we want to show you is that we can see from this share the completion status. So we have one form that's not been started, one that's completed, and one that is currently in progress. So we have this completion status, and we can look more closely at those details by clicking into the graph. We can also, these are the details and notifications. Again, we've created the share. This is something that you would fill out when the start date, target date, access, end date of the form would be, and maybe some messages that you want to have in there as well. But what we can also do is we're also able to create notifications and we're able to send them to if we're you know, maybe a superintendent, we want to remind all of our administrators to complete these evaluations, or maybe we're a principal and it is our educators, responsibility to complete part of that form and they haven't yet, and we want to send out that notification that we're able to do that and send out to the specific roles. Maybe I want to send it out to all third grade teachers, or like I said, all of our administrators, whatever it might be. And it will only send to those who have not completed them yet. So it will not send to anyone who has completed and finalized a form. And I'm also able to schedule all of them. So if I don't want to have to worry about it, and I just want to choose all the dates up front that I want to schedule these notifications, I can do the send later option and choose that date here. So I'm able to do all of those before or upfront. Also, with our mini one special educator, we are also able to see, in our in this folder that I had just clicked, all of the in progress and completed forms. So I can see that one is completed and three might be in progress. I can see the teacher that these forms are being done for. I can go into the form itself by choosing this icon here. And I can see also, where we're sort of at in this process. Ray Charles, he's in 3% of his evaluation has been completed. So this is a page.
Also, Marissa, real quick,
Oop,
in the in that page, real quick, so that filter is very valuable too. So again, you could go to the filter, you could just type in beach, and it would zero in on all the Beach Street evaluations. If you're the superintendent, you could have filtered in on Ray Charles, on in progress. So very easily you can kind of filter and look at certain things. And I know we're running out of time, so I'm sorry, Marcelo. Go
no,
back.
that's okay. I think that's great because whether you're a principal and you're just have your educators or you're sort of at the SAU level and want to be able to see all the different schools, that there are so many ways that you can filter and use this to see those. So no, thank you for adding that in. And lastly, I just want to show you how we can then again use the data we're collecting to target that professional development. So I'm just looking at some data that I have for an instructional coach. So I have this data and statistics page, and I can see here, it does provide me some graphs of where we're at. So, the evaluations that we've done, we know that we only have some mock data in here, three evaluations, but two of those were basic and one was not observed. So maybe creating a respectful and emotionally safe culture is something that, we need to provide some professional development on. Or we can see, where we are effective with most of our teachers and so forth. So we have this data and statistics page that we can also export to an Excel spreadsheet, and we can also filter itself as well. We can filter it by organization, by schools. We can filter it by teachers and so forth within the form itself. So Mike, is there anything you wanted to add or see within the platform itself that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate like the work we're doing for Manchester or for Newmarket as an example. We're definitely working collaboratively. We are expanding ESP to help meet some specific needs that they have that we know will be valuable to others. So for example, the idea of being able to have a teacher identify what their goals are in one form and then have those goals play into the evaluation. So if my goal is XYZ and based on that goal, there are certain indicators that I want to be evaluated on as part of my professional plan for the year, that information feeds into the evaluation. And when the evaluator is doing their work, they very quickly see here are the indicators that I need to be observing during my evaluation. So we're going to be doing more of that type of integration, and that'll be great stuff that hopefully will be valuable for all the schools.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, Mike, as Mike stated there, and also when he sort of highlighted that we are doing this with you, we do hear your needs, and for the most part, we are able to accommodate those needs and really work with you to get ESP up and running in a way that's going to work for your school or district. We know that schools and districts have individual needs, and so ESP is flexible enough that we can make it work for what your needs are. So lastly, this is just a wrap up. We went over educator evaluations today, but these are just some of the other ways that we can use ESP. We want to make sure that you are getting a platform that can do everything that you need, or mostly everything, so that you don't have all these separate systems. So this is just a lesson. You'll get a copy of the slide deck when we're done, as well as a recording of this webinar. So here's how you can get some more information. We have a little bit more on our website, and we have some links here that we have a brochure and a video that you can watch. We also have a webinar coming up on February 6th about collecting climate and perception data through ESP. So if you're interested but you want to figure out other ways that you can use this platform, we have that coming up. And then of course we have our emails and our phone numbers if you want to reach out. Even if you have any clarifying questions, whatever you might need, please reach out to us. We thank you so much for coming. We know we went a little bit over on time, so we appreciate it. We know how busy you are, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we hope to be in contact soon.
Thank you, Marissa. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.